McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titan! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Titan Nation, what's up? Welcome back. Mr.Titan here. Today I have a special guest with me. He's an award-winning writer who has covered the NFL for almost over 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know him, Paul Kuharsky. How you doing, PK?
I'm great. How you doing? Sorry it's taken me a while to commit to the time slot. Good to be with you.
No, man, I understand that completely, especially with free agency. It hit just when I was messaging people, I was like, damn it, I'm like, free agency is about to hit. That means they're not going to be able to do anything. But again, I do appreciate your time, man.
Not a problem.
And talking about, the Titan fans, Titan organization and stuff like that. I mean, Titan fans in general, we know about you, and it's almost like a love-hate relationship. It's either you love PK or you hate PK. It's one or the other. Honestly speaking, I have no problem with you. I understand that you have a job to do and you're a reporter. You have to report things. Some people will bash you regardless, whether it's good news or bad news. I had Bernard Poller on, and a lot of people got on me because they're like, oh, well, he talked bad about the Titans. Why are you going to have him on? But you have to understand certain situations. I mean, again, he came from the Ravens, who just won a Super Bowl, to a not-so-great Titans team. So it is what it is, right, Paul?
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of only three teams, really.
Okay.
U.S. Soccer, the Yankees, and Chelsea. So I've gotten particularly into Chelsea, say, during the pandemic because I've been home a lot. And then during this 2 months of layoff between my time at the Zone and starting Outkick 360, I was home a lot of weekday afternoons when they had Premier League games or Champion League games, where I was able to watch them when I never would have been able to watch them on a regular workday, right?
Yes, sir.
And so I wanted to read everything I could about the team I was watching. Well, I wanted critical analysis. They had Lampard, a manager that was struggling. Why were they struggling? I want roses about why they were struggling. Then he got fired. And now a guy's taken over, Thomas Tuchel, and they haven't lost a game in 14 games, and they're playing great. Why are they playing great now? And how's it compared to what they were doing before? And what are the decisions that he's making? And why are they having success? Why is Pulisic, the best American soccer player, not have much of a role in it? I want critical analysis. And I don't really understand fans who want all roses. And if you want all roses, I mean, there are plenty of outlets where you could read all roses. I don't think there are a lot of outlets where you could get what I'm giving you. And I don't think there are a lot of places you can listen like you can now at Outkick 360, where we're doing pretty much the same thing we were doing at the Midday 180, where you could get the critical analysis we're offering. And so, I know you left Jersey when you were younger, but you've been in Miami and Texas, and I imagine there are stronger doses of that than there are here in Nashville, where for some reason it's never really taken root.
Gotcha. I mean, again, a lot of people are the first to criticize. Luckily, surprisingly, we do have a strong fan base on YouTube. All the YouTubers that do Titans content. I mean, I have my friend Titan Upload, Titans in Truth, Ken Moore. So there are several guys that they try to be as real as possible. That's the most important thing, is to get your information out, not be biased, but be as realistic. And some people just don't like you said, they don't like that realistic part. They tend to cringe and not accept it.
Well, I mean, I understand rooting wholeheartedly for something, but again, I'm a Yankees guy, and when the bullpen is falling apart on a regular basis, I'm not like, oh, he's such a great fellow, and I root so hard for him. I want to know why the hell the sinker's not sinking.
Yep.
And why they can't get out, can't get the third out in an inning. And so if those are the kind of things you want to know, then I'm your guy. If you don't want to know those things, I'm not your guy. I have no problem with not being for everybody.
Yep. No, I understand completely. And by the way, talk about the Yankees. We need bullpen. That's what's gonna get you deep into get us back into the World Series, man.
And health.
Yeah,
Health.
yeah. Surprisingly, they've been injured a lot throughout these years. And again, Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, I could ramble on, man, about the Yankees. That's my thing. But we'll talk. We'll try and strictly talk about Tennessee Titans. But
I already gave you too much Chelsea.
But Paul, talk to me a little bit about your history in becoming a reporter. Was it always your major when you first started school, or was it kind of something you were flip-flopping, or you always kind of intended to be a reporter?
I had a pretty good feeling, growing up, that I wanted to be some kind of a writer.
Okay.
As a younger person, maybe even into high school, I thought I wanted to be a novelist, and then I discovered that I didn't have many plots. I grew up with the New York Times in my driveway every day. My dad was a avid reader, and I picked up that habit. I started with the sports page to see what was going on at the Yankees, and I was much deeper then into the Knicks and the New York sports scene in general. But when I got to college, I went to Columbia. It's a liberal arts school. There is no undergraduate journalism. I was a political science major.
Mm-hmm.
I took the little bit of journalism I could get into from other schools at the university. But I spent 40 hours a week starting after my second semester at the school paper, Columbia Daily Spectator, which was New York's 8th largest English-speaking daily paper. We prided ourselves on that. We had that on the back of our T-shirts. And we were independent, student run. And so we were actually finishing up a 44-game football losing streak. And I was actually writing on the day that we finally won. I was working on a big piece about guys quitting the basketball team because they were miserable with the basketball coach. So I landed in sports over there just because it's an easy place to go, because I knew the subject matter better than I knew the campus politics scene or the academic curriculum or whatever else. And it kind of just took off from there. I worked a summer at the Associated Press, kind of on the overnight desk, where you took like minor league baseball box scores from California. Okay. And your night was over when the latest game in California was over. I worked as a summer as an intern in the PR department of the National Basketball Association. And I pieced together anything I could. And then the logic dictates, like, the start is at your local paper covering high schools. And that's what I did. Like almost every sports writer of that time. That was the early 90s for me.
Gotcha. And you covered other teams, right? I was reading you covered the Raiders as well for a little bit.
I started on the Raiders. So my big break was the Raiders moving back to Oakland. And they stayed in Los Angeles. And so the Oakland Tribune had promised me the next open job if the Raiders moved back. They didn't promise me the Raiders, but they figured out every paper in the Bay Area was sending somebody down to Los Angeles to cover the practice week.
Okay.
They hired me and they said, you live in Los Angeles and then you just come up for a day for home games. It'd be cheaper for us. We only pay for one night at a hotel.
Wow.
While other papers are paying for 2 or 3 nights.
Mm-hmm.
So I traveled every weekend that year, home or away games, as a young guy and up for it. And so that was a little baptism by fire, meeting Al Davis and the Raiders way, which is complicated, not your average team to cover. But then after they fully relocated and I fully relocated with them, there was kind of a scandal at the paper, and the most recent hires in budget crunch got sent packing. So I only was there for a year. Then I sold myself to the Tennessee, and hey, you've got a team on the move. You're looking for somebody to cover the Oilers.
Yep.
And they hired me, and I lived in Houston for a year, covered not just the team, but all the legal wrangling the team had to do to get out of the lease at the Astrodome
Yes,
free
sir.
themselves up to come up here to Nashville a year early. And then we had the Memphis and the Vanderbilt all before Adelphia Coliseum, which at the time.
Definitely. And how was your time at the Tennessee, and how long were you there for? Because I remember
I was
reading
at the
some articles.
Tennessean from 1996 to 2008.
Okay, so
Overall, a good experience. For much of that, the early years, we had an incredible crew of people. Jim Wyatt joined the Titans element of that pretty quickly. Jeff Legwald, who ended up in Denver, David Clymer, rest his soul. John Glennon covered that first season for the Commercial Appeal, then came over to cover the Predators. That was a great team to be a part of and do a lot of work with. But newspapers were already on the major downturn when I was fortunate enough to go to ESPN.com, and I get to spread my wings and cover the division for 5 years before ESPN.com expanded to somebody on every team. So I really enjoyed covering the Colts and the Texans and the Jaguars in addition to the Tennessee, and made a lot of great connections in those markets and around the league. And then I lucked out that as I was asked to go back to strictly the Titans was right at the time the Midday 180 came into existence.
Yep.
So my role was reduced somewhat on the national job that I had, and my local job kind of doubled in Nashville with the radio show.
Do you miss actually covering other teams? Because that's always kind of interesting, just to find out what the other team's doing, or how like work wise, what the process and the thinking behind each team.
Yeah, it was nice to be deeper into it and have a broader perspective. And look, I think it's kind of ridiculous for so many people to act as if they have a full handle on all 32 teams. It's too broad.
Yeah.
A division was just right. You could have a real handle on 4 teams, and you could build real connections with 4 teams. And I think all of us that had that role really liked it because it was a different size, manageable niche. So it was a come down, to be honest, to come off of that, but it was comfort level coming back to Titans only. That was a real highlight period of my career, and I enjoyed meeting and getting to know the people that worked for those teams, the players on those teams, the executives, the coaches who are splashed around the league now, some of them out of the league, and then fans in those cities. So that was a real cool time, and ESPN let us kind of invent those jobs collectively.
Okay.
I'm still really good friends with the other 7 people that had those roles, and who are spread around the league too. In a lot of ways, it was a great deal of fun, and I'm fortunate to still have a lot of sources out of that time.
Well, that's why that was probably one of the main things. Also, also the friendships, but also just the networking itself. You have more people to reach out to, more viable information to go around. So I get you on that one.
Yeah.
Now, covering the Titans. All right, this is kind of like a question out of left field, but hey, it's worth mentioning. In your opinion, who was the best Titans coach? Could be past or present. It could be Mike Rabel right now. Who, in your opinion, and why?
Best overall Titans coach. We're talking like
Just
in terms of getting results.
A little again.
You'll leave it to me to define.
Yeah, just leave it to you, because again, I'm a big Mike Mularkey guy. I love Mike Mularkey. I think they played. The team had a lot of heart. They played a lot of heart. They love the guy. But again, I don't mind Rabel either. But what would be your opinion?
It was not Mike Mularkey. He was too stuck in his ways.
That is true.
Too inflexible.
Yep.
Too married to coaches like Robisky, who were not flexible enough.
Yep.
I remember writing from Arizona when they had that week out there between the Arizona and San Francisco games, which were really his undoing. talking to LeBeau and Rabisky
Mm-hmm.
about this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but about evolving two old guys and how much do you evolve. And LeBeau said, adapt or die. And he was the older one. And Rabisky said, if you run it 8 times and if it doesn't work, you run it the 9th time because it's going to work. Ridiculously stubborn. He was. They had some bad offensive coordinators in Nashville, and he may have headed the list. There was a lot to like about Malarkey,
Yeah.
but I don't think he was the best. Fisher in his prime was very good, but then he let things get away from him far too much. Had too much control. Bud was ailing and out of it, and Jeff and Floyd at their peak were obviously very good together. I didn't think Munchak was a very good head coach. He was not well enough. Just didn't have enough experience and wasn't spread out enough in his experience in the league to hire a good staff. He had some good ideas. His GM wasn't providing him with very good talent. Wisenhunt, obviously not good at all.
Mm-mm.
So I'm tempted to say Vrabel. I think Vrabel's done a good job at getting a lot out of his people. I mean, that defense last year, I think he's too stubborn on the coaching front there with Bowen and all of those things. But the defensive talent last year was really bad. And they won 11 games and a division title.
Yep.
He's found a way to win some games that they had no business winning. You know, they won that Houston game early on when they were without starting quarterback, 2 starting tackles. He does smart things, managing the clock, taking intentional delays of game and things like that. I think he's not flawless by any means, but he's still young and growing. And I think he turns off some players, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't the best thing. I hope he's learning and adapting in those ways. But as a game day coach and the overall work product he's getting out of his team, I think I'd rank him number 1. Part of that is that the competition isn't great.
Okay. Now, do you find Mike Vrabel to be stubborn in his own ways, just like you said Trubisky was at certain parts, or is
Yeah, I mean, he's stubborn on certain things. I think people are a lot of people are always asking me about his press conference attitude, to which I say, like, if I'm not bemoaning it or I don't have a problem with his answers to my questions
Mhm.
or his tone with me, then you should, you know.
Yeah.
So, that's me and him interacting. And if I have issue with him, I'll deal with issue with him, and you let me worry about me.
Yeah, gotcha.
And he and I obviously have a relationship that goes beyond what everybody sees or hears in those press conference settings. And trust me, it's fine. And don't worry about it.
Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? So, let's go over overall. If you had, okay, say it's a game day, right? What is your outline? Give me your outline of a game day. Where do do you get there 3 hours earlier? What's the whole kind of walk me through your whole day of game day, if you
I
can?
get there about 2 hours
Okay.
before, but typically for a noon central start.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a little different for a 3 o'clock or a primetime game. Get there about 2 hours before the start, maybe a little earlier. That COVID, you can't be downstairs so much.
Okay.
Non-COVID game, if there's an injury where somebody's really going to be working out before the game, you might try to get there earlier to see that early workout.
Okay.
Might try to get there earlier to get some pictures of guys coming in, particularly if somebody's health is in question, because you could be down in the tunnel.
Gotcha.
I could go down on the field before the early warm up to be seen, maybe talk to somebody, more to get art I could get some pictures that might be useful for my website. Certainly stuff that I could put on Twitter and Instagram. Last year's a different story. You're at best 8 rows deep in the stands.
Mhm.
Everybody's shooting the same stuff. Try to get something that's a little bit different than everybody else, but it's not the most intriguing stuff.
How did that work out with being like COVID and being a certain distance away and stuff like that? Were you still able to get the interviews, or how was that process? Was there like a certain amount of people that could actually interview players at a time, or how did that
Now,
work?
post game last year was all Zoom. So,
Okay.
I mean, the
Oh,
same
wow.
people that were credentialed who would have been in the locker room, all our conversations were Zoom. It was awful.
Huh.
Couldn't get anything, individually, couldn't sidle up to a guy over here while everybody was talking to Derrick Henry over there, which is, the kind of thing that I like to do. So it was bad. Hopefully we're back to some semblance of normal, because we don't know Christian Fulton or Darrington Evans
At all.
we don't know them at all. So you guys don't know them at all either. You haven't really heard from them. So then I take notes during a game. I take a running play-by-play, but I also write down things I know are key moments in the game that I'm going to want to ask questions about. Try to tweet a little bit, try to stay away from play-by-play tweeting. I don't understand why so many people play-by-play tweet. I think most people are A, watching the game, or B, if they're not watching the game, they're getting something like that from team account.
Yeah.
So, try to look for, somebody's going to the medical tent, somebody's going off, something that you're not seeing on TV. At home game, I'm listening to Mike Keith and Dave McGinnis. On the road, I miss that. It doesn't do much good to listen to the broadcast of the home team there from their perspective. And then after the game, you're doing those interviews. Take an hour 15, maybe hour 20. Get back to the press box. Get to work on tweet some stuff out. Write, I tend to write one big column, all encompassing. Sometimes there's a news story or something to do off of that, and then I do a broadcast for my membership from the press box there on the field with kind of my initial thoughts on what unfolded there. And I'm usually, if not the last guy, I'm usually the last guy out, because most people write in about the same time sequence. Mm-hmm. And then I usually broadcast after the late games are over, maybe during football night in America or the start of the Sunday night football game. So it's a long day on us.
Gotcha. Jeez. So usually you wrap it up by what?
8-ish.
7:30-ish. Yeah. Man, that's well, that's if you want to become a reporter, right? I mean, there's certain things you just got to do, right?
Yeah, and then if you're on the road, you get back to the hotel, having something to eat, probably starting to work on something for the next day, mm-hmm. and probably have an early flight back. I'm trying to get back for the old show. I was trying to get back by 9:00, and now I've got a little bit more leeway. I'll be trying to get back by 11:00, but want to get back and be ready to broadcast.
Gotcha. Oof. Again, it's always interesting to hear other people's perspective, especially at work ethic and working in general. I mean, again, we just don't hear what exactly. Like I had Amy Wells on, and she explained exactly what she did. I had other people explaining their perspective and what they actually do, and I had Lance Smith on, and he was telling me what he actually does. And again, you just see Lance Smith, on commercial breaks doing this and that, but he actually does quite a lot. He has a busy day ahead of him, especially on game day. So again, it's nice to get to know someone and understand what they do and how much they're committed and stuff. Again, like I said, a lot of people see like kind of the negatives. A lot of people take the negative, from anyone, unfortunately. But
it's a fun work day. You get into a routine, and I've always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Those early morning alarms sometimes on the early flight back stink. And, if you do a Monday night game or a Sunday night game and you're trying to get back the next day, a lot of times, you may be taking a 2-hour nap. There have been some times where I just go back to the hotel, change, pack up, and go to the airport.
What about those like a Sunday afternoon game and then you have a Thursday night game? I mean, a lot of people would preach and complain about that a lot.
Yeah, well, it's not, that's more a player complaint because their bodies don't have much time to recover. If they got to catch a couple flights, got to catch a couple flights. You get the makeup time on the other side of that when you get 10 days and you're home with the family on a Sunday, which you usually aren't.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk a little bit about free agency and what the Tennessee Titans have done, who they cut, who they added onto the roster and stuff like that. It feels like I try to stay off Twitter because, again, everyone and their mother wants to add someone. They flip out when they cut someone, and it's a big mess. What player from free agency that we picked up do you think will have the biggest impact on the team so far?
Well, it needs to be Bud Dupree. I mean, they've been terrible at that position. Very low impact pass rush, disastrously bad last year. Titans don't like to say the word sack. They like to talk about pressure. Pressure is good. Pressure sometimes needs to end in a sack. If you pressure the quarterback and make him throw an incomplete pass on 1st and 10, that's great, but it's 2nd and 10. If you sack the quarterback on 1st and 10, it's conceivably 2nd and 17. Yes. Drives don't usually get converted out of 2nd and 17, though against the Titans' 3rd down defense.
3rd down, yeah.
They may well have. But, statistically, it's very hard for teams to convert series on which their quarterback is sacked. And when you sack the quarterback 19 times in a season, you're not putting your defense in a very good position. Titans haven't been a good enough pass rush team without scheming things up to their advantage. And I think, Dean Pease said that he liked the challenge of scheming things up. You got to have a guy that beats people and gets into the backfield consistently, draws double teams to free up other people. Bud Dupree, at his price and with his talent, should do that. He should draw attention. He should command double teams. That should help. Harold Landry on the other side, who needs to develop a secondary move and not rely on always winning to the outside with speed. Mm-hmm. That should help Jeffrey Simmons, who I know everybody loves but does not rush the passer well enough yet. Danico Autry should help. He's much more of a penetrator than anybody they've had up front outside of Jarrell Casey. Lately, the defensive line's been an undervalued position of need for a while. Yes, that sir. New front four and nickel with Landry and Dupree as the backers and Simmons and Autry as the linemen is significantly better than what they were fielding last year. And the push they should get from those four should influence the entire defense. Gotcha. They've revamped cornerback. Kevin Johnson, to me is the weakest guy they've brought in. He's not been very good. He's not been healthy. It's always dangerous when you hire somebody that's been hurt elsewhere and count on him not being hurt for you. The best indicator of future performance is past performance. His past performance hasn't been very good when he's been on the field, and he's often not been on the field. So they got a lot more work to do at corner. At receiver, even with Josh Reynolds added. And, I think some more fill in the crack free agents as well as they need a home run draft like they had 2 years ago after last year not being impactful at all, headlined by the Isaiah Wilson disaster.
Oh, boy, which we'll talk a little bit about him later on. But talking about the defense of last year, what do you think the main problem was? Was it technically not having a defensive coordinator? Again, he said, I know Bowen, he said it was the coming up with the schemes and stuff like that. What was the problem? Was it, cutting Malcolm Butler, was cutting Adoree Jackson? Was that the right move in your opinion? Again, I like Malcolm Butler a lot. like you said, Adoree Jackson was always hurt. I mean, again, you can't show that product if someone's always hurt. He only played how many games last year? So what do you think about that? And then
Well, I mean, I think the problem is very rarely one thing, right? They had multiple things that factored in last year, but the number one thing were the players, I think. I mean, how does Rashaan Evans not only not get better, but get worse as a not very good player? You know, how is Jeffrey Simmons, who was very good against the run and made a lot of good plays, not develop at all as a penetrator against the pass? How is Harold Landry expected to do better when the whole offseason theme was about getting him fewer snaps, and he ends up playing 94% of the snaps? You know, they had to go awfully deep in the secondary, but when you're playing Ty Smith and Breon Borders and Kareem Orr, when you're banking on Jonathan Joseph to fill in early, I mean, those are some substantial personnel issues. And so first and foremost, the personnel wasn't good enough. Clowney didn't have an influence. You know, he made Jeffrey Simmons a little better. Is he stout against the run? Yeah, he's reasonably stout against the run. Did he create a little bit of pressure? Yeah. 8 games, no sacks for a $13 million guy. I know he's not a sack artist, but he's allowed to touch the quarterback, and he didn't. Bud Dupree was an embarrassing waste of $9.5 million. Those are personnel decisions, and that's insufficient personnel on defense. That's problem number one. Then the scheme fails. Then the coaches fail. Everybody wants to go after Bowen, who didn't do a good job as the effective defensive coordinator, but talk about position coaches too. Yep. Jim Haslett was new as the inside linebacker coach. Where's his influence positive on Rashaan Evans? I didn't see anything. Who did Anthony Midget make better at cornerback when they were down people? Breon Borders was good for a couple of weeks, and then everybody figured him out. Yep. You know, he's part of the reason that they bring in a Jonathan Joseph, who was a disaster. Bowen's in charge of those outside linebackers. You know, it's hard to ask a lot of Derek Roberson, but he didn't do a damn thing when he got his chance. Yeah. So, you know, coaching, scheme, first and foremost, players. The changes they make now, you know, Adoree Jackson and the team were at odds over his injury for at least a little bit.
Okay.
Over $10 million based on the way he's played would have been hard to carry. He got a lot of money from the Giants, but his cap number is under $6 million. I don't think it's a good contract for the Giants. Butler, we knew, was going to be the first guy to go in terms of money. You got to like his feistiness. You know, Vaccaro, I think, was going to be gone, money or not. Humphreys, you know, it's unfortunate he was as hurt as he was. I think he's a hell of a guy for a sense of where the markers were.
Yep.
Who could be a really effective piece of the receiving core. His money didn't add up anymore for how often he wasn't on the field. And there's a lot of roster churn here. They need to hit home runs on personnel. We mentioned Dupree and Autry. Reynolds has to be a factor. Jenkins has to be a factor. And they need a couple more of those fill-in-the-crack kind of guys I'm talking about who are going to be impactful in their roles. And they need 2 or 3 guys out of this draft who are going to be high snap impact guys, and maybe 1 or 2 more who are going to play, you know, not insubstantial roles.
Definitely. Do you think with how many people we actually lost on offense, then we switch it from defense to offense? Again, we lost Jonnu Smith. We lost Arthur Smith. We lost Corey Davis. We lost – I mean, there was a bunch of people we lost on the offensive side of the ball. How big of an impact is losing, you know, the offensive coordinator and the players? Or were you not sold on Corey Davis as much?
Well, I don't think you could pay Corey Davis $12.5 million that he got. I think you need to draft a wide receiver who's going to come in and be your number 2 receiver right out of the gate. Reynolds as a 3, you know, I think can be reasonable. Batson can help you. If that's your top 4, all right. I mean, the depth wasn't great there last year, and Humphreys missed most of it. got to pick up Jonnu's slack. The thing about Jonnu being gone, a lot of people seem to be fine with the Ferks or Swaim combination, but Jonnu did both jobs. Ferkser and Swaim are a half and half deal. Ferkser's not as good a blocker as people want to believe. Swaim's not as good a pass catcher. And Ferkser is very sure-handed and can get open, but he's not going to run people over or run away from people the same way. So they take a hit there. Right tackle, I thought Dennis Kelly did an admirable job, but they probably see the beginning of the end for him. A guy like Kendall Lamb, Greg Cosell's a regular guest now with us on Outkick 360. Said a guy like Kendall Lamb, who's a good run blocker, can survive in play action. They'll help him in drop back stuff. The Titans have proven they can function with a guy like that. Offensive line was very good last year, and now you get Taylor Lewan back in there. So we're not sure about Todd Downing, but I think the offense, as long as it's got Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, should be pretty good. Now you got to get the defense from 29th to 16th. Be in the middle of the pack in the league. Keep the offense, up there. And, tall orders both, given the amount of shuffling that's going on. Vrabel, I'm sure is in constant summit meetings with his people when they're not evaluating players, kind of revising and strategizing how they're going to go about things. And, you do the right tinkering and they could be in position like they were last year. But there's room for a fall off too if they don't hit on some of these guys and make the kind of adjustments to their mentality that are required.
Definitely. Pick of the draft, we have number 22. Who do we go, offense or defense? Just on top of your head, or someone that you kind of had interest?
Well, I think you still have to see what else happens in free agency here. They've moved away from desperation now in terms of addressing cornerback with Jenkins. Johnson wouldn't stop me from taking anybody. Addressing wide receiver with Reynolds. So, there's still a big hole at both of those positions. I would think it's a wide receiver or a cornerback. I don't think you can predetermine, position or side of the ball. You got to see what's on the board, and you got to see how things are falling. If there's a flurry of wide receivers and there's a great cornerback there, then your decision's made for you. Vice versa, if there's a flurry of both of them, and the best defensive tackle in the draft is on the board or the second best, that could be dictated to you. And you could conceivably do almost anything in the first round, so long as you come out of the first three. I think having addressed wide receiver and corner and edge is still a big need too. They need a third guy. They need a fourth guy, really. So those are the three big positions that I think need to be addressed probably in the first three rounds. That's why I'd like to see them still do at least one more thing in free agency that eases the solid need and gives them some more flexibility in those first three rounds, where you don't say they've got to come out of the first three rounds with receiver, cornerback, and edge. So they have a little bit of flexibility there based on what goes on around them.
Well, yeah, especially in the draft, you don't want to put all your cards like you have to, like you said, you have to draft like these three positions we have to get in the draft, because again, you never know what could happen in the draft. Draft can get a little crazy and stuff like that. So I understand, yeah, maybe just one more splash in free agency, pick someone up, so it kind of loosen that kind of like that the headlock we got on. And hey, maybe we get an offensive tackle. I don't know. A lot of people are like, no, we don't want another offensive tackle.
I can't see them spending a top three-round pick on offensive tackle. They've got Lamb and Sombrero now, I think, who are equipped to slug it out for that spot. I don't think you can fix the Isaiah Wilson pick with another high pick this soon, and that pick's going to haunt them for some time.
Yeah, it was just bad from the get-go. I wasn't too sold on the pick, but hey, I'm not a GM, I'm not a coach, so what do I know? But damn, what a disappointment, unfortunately. And hopefully, he gets the help he needs. A lot of people kind of right. He's still young and stuff, but still, hopefully he gets the help he needs because it's not looking good for him. But, well, Paul, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and talking a little bit about your career and a little bit of Titans football. It's always nice, especially on the off season. And we have free agency and then the draft and stuff like that. But I do appreciate all the work you've done for with the Titans and stuff and for NFL in general. So appreciate everything that you do and just keep doing what you're doing, man. Love your stuff.
Appreciate the invite. Hope everybody check out paulkuharsky.com and Outkick 360's on every day now at 11 Central. You can go YouTube, you can go Twitter Live, or you can pick up a podcast after the fact anywhere that you get your podcasts and listen to it at your convenience. It's very much like what you were listening to in your car at our old station. So if you're missing us from there, you get the same thing going on where we are now. A little bit less monitored, if you will.
Cool. We like less monitored, but again, thanks so much, Paul, man. Have a blessed day, brother.
Thanks for the invite. Enjoy it.